Hello, Leo Kale here. In this video, I will do a watercolor study of this New York City photograph, and then I'll import that finished painting into my iPad and use a digital paint program, see if I can't make some improvements to the finished art to later be used for a much larger painting. Hi, my name is Leo Kale. I'm a professional fine artist and instructor specializing in loose and romantic watercolor art. The following watercolor project was a preliminary study for a full sheet watercolor commission to be completed after this project. At the end of this tutorial, I'll show you how I use my iPad to analyze the finished painting and play around with possible fixes that most paintings usually require. So it's a powerful tool. All professionals use them. Don't feel like you can't use something like that to help your paintings. So that being said, let's get started. So now I'm working on the drawing for the painting. I'm never a slave to a photograph. A photograph is simply a starting point or a suggestion for me. I try to distill the scene down into big, medium, and small shapes, simplify it as much as possible. Now you'll see me adding some shapes on the left-hand side that aren't actually there. You should use your imagination to make the scene better. I really want to highlight the big crowds that you have in New York City during the holidays. So you'll see me sketching people in. My client and her niece will be in the foreground, heading into the theater. You can see I'm roughing in people. The figures I'm putting in now are walking into my focal area. So that's an important idea. Again, just keep faking in figures, lots of energy, New York City. So that's the point of the drawing, and really simplify the drawing for a watercolor painting. All the pencil lines that you see on this drawing will basically dissolve away. I never worry about pencil lines showing through in my final artwork. If you use soft enough lead, this shouldn't be an issue. When you use too hard of a lead, it will actually dent the paper, and the pigment will collect in the pencil lines, and then you'll definitely see the line work. But if you use soft lead like a 6B or 5B, you should be fine. Okay, almost ready to begin painting, applying my first layer of paint. Real quick, this is Arch's 140-pound rough paper. It is a 12 by 16, I believe, paper size, and that's a nice size to work on. Again, this is a preliminary painting for a full sheet watercolor down the road. So I'm just going to try out some things in this painting, and really that's the point of this effort right now. Okay, so I paint watercolor in layers. So this first layer is what I call my glow layer. Generally, it's the majority of the color that will go down in the entire painting, mostly warm hues that will radiate through the final painting. So that's what I'll be doing now, is putting down a translucent wash of warm hues, especially under the canopy there, kind of street level, all the lights that come from the storefronts. I'll be using a yellow ochre to suggest that. Painting light. This is kind of, even though it looks like daytime, it's kind of a nocturne with all the light emanating from the music hall. So painting light in a watercolor is an interesting challenge. You can't paint light in a watercolor. You can only reveal it. Very important concept. So, but it will have a warm glow to it. So I'm going to go ahead and start off with some yellow ochre under the awning, as you can see here. Also very important at this stage that I use a very soft mop. I don't want to see any abrupt brush marks. So everything in this first layer is to be a soft, almost a wet into wet, although I am working on dry paper here, but my paint to water ratio is quite high, a lot of water, and this will help all the various disparate hues kind of just blend together. I feel like it's very important for this layer to create a cohesive, it makes the final painting have some cohesion because of the the way that the hues join together in this first layer. Okay, so moving along here, I made the decision to introduce some blue. My client has an affinity for blue, so I thought, okay, I will use more blue in this scene perhaps than is actually there. But this blue is kind of a cool blue, and for the asphalt of these New York City streets, I'm going to kind of regret using this cool hue at this point. I think I should have flooded this foreground with more of a warm hue, but that's why you do preliminary pieces for big projects, is to make your mistakes on the small piece, not on your final piece. Okay, so in keeping with my client's affinity for blue, I decided to make some of these awnings overhanging the New York street storefronts, make those blue, and I will allow that blue to kind of influence everything around it, and then gradually start working up the building in more of a blue-gray, kind of that steely gray skyscraper look and feel. That's what I'm doing now. Again, very, very wet. Everything kind of running together. Not being too careful. In this first layer of my painting process, one of the things I'm very conscious of is the opacity level of my pigment. I really want the light to pass through this layer of pigment to hit the white paper and return. So I don't generally paint too heavy, too opaque on this first layer. So this, again, being my glow layer, I need the light to come through this pigment and bounce back out. Okay, so now I'm going to address the buildings on the right side. Actually, the buildings above the music hall, and they have a lot more concrete to their structure. So I feel they're a bit warmer than the buildings that were on the far left. So I'm just adding some, I believe, some burnt sienna and maybe some, I don't know, maybe a little bit of scarlet or vermilion to try to warm up these big shapes above the music hall. So now I'm adding some warmth to the buildings on the right, the buildings above the theater. They have more of a concrete structure, so I think that they'll feel a little warmer in the end result. I'm also adding some blue now to cool it down. If you want to make things glow, try not to paint with the same warmth or coolness. You want to alternate between warm and cool, and that will help create a feeling of glow in your painting. Okay, so you'll see me tilting my board here, or my paper rather, my watercolor block. Whenever possible, try to allow gravity to blend your various hues. It makes it look like it was untouched. The less you can touch the painting, the better. So really make use of gravity to allow your various hues to join on their own. It's just one of the most beautiful aspects of watercolor. So now I'm introducing a warm blue. I think I'm using I'm using cobalt here, but I think that I will go back and add some manganese. It's a bit warmer blue, and so I'm letting the paint kind of run. It really needs to interact with the buildings, so there's not a hard edge between the sky and the buildings. So hopefully I will allow the sky to interact with the buildings on the left and also the buildings on the right. You want to, at this point, the paper is still pretty moist, so the blue of the sky will migrate into the buildings on the left, as well as the moist paper of the buildings on the right. So important to get soft edges and to make things look like they recede. Okay, you'll see me taking some tissue paper and wiping off the edges of the board. When you create a beautiful wash on this first layer, the last thing you want is for extraneous liquid to bloom back into your beautiful washes. So always wipe off your edges. Okay, at this point, I feel like I need to dry this layer pretty thoroughly. Um, it's important. It's important to dry this first layer. You'll notice how much the color, the intensity of the color has faded back. You got to kind of plan for that, knowing that they'll fade back about 50%. Okay, so now I'm going to start spotting in the flesh tone of some of the faces of the figures. I do this for a couple reasons. As I paint, it's very easy to lose your figures. So by dabbing in a few flesh tones for faces and whatnot, it will help kind of keep me oriented as to where things are. So an important step, I think. Okay, so what I'm doing now is introducing some of the warm glow from the neon lights of the Radio City Music Hall signage. Now, typically, this should have been done before I dried this layer. I generally don't dry this glow layer until I have everything, all the hues kind of in place. But for some reason, I chose to dry this, and probably not the best idea, as these new hues I'm introducing will not easily blend with the background. So as this is a preparatory study for a larger painting, I'm not being maybe as careful as I normally would. But let's see what happens here. And this brush that I'm using here is too small of a brush, and I'm being lazy, and I should be using a softer brush to introduce this glow of this neon signage. But it is what it is. Sometimes you just grab a brush and you just go for it. So you can see some of the line work that maybe would not be a good thing to have had I used a softer brush. But so here I am taking a mop and some water and trying to soften up the pigment that I just put down. Okay, so now I'm gonna try to suggest some of the glow of the neon lights on the kind of the main marquee of the music hall here. So using some yellow ochre to help suggest that glow. Kind of softening up some of the glow on the metal signage up above. A lot of times you use clean water and a soft brush to gently lift pigment to help make things glow a bit more. But I'll keep working on the signage here. Really, again, this should have been part of that layer prior to using the hairdryer, but for whatever reason I chose to dry it a little prematurely. But really this should have been done on the very first layer. So let's go ahead and add some of the glow from the red neon signage, and kind of work that into the background. This is a very small, one of my favorite brushes. Is I call it my baby mop. Very small mop that's very soft, but it's much smaller, so I have a bit more control with it than I would a larger mop. But it's one of my go-to brushes. Okay, so we're coming to the end of this first layer. Normally, this layer should be done much more efficiently, much quicker than what I've done here. But as this is going to be kind of a planning painting for a larger painting, I took more time than usual to play around with maybe where my warm values would be and whatnot. So normally this is about a 2-minute process to paint in this background, but for whatever reason it took a little longer on this initial layer. So it normally shouldn't take this long, but for this project it's okay because we're kind of thinking it through. Okay, this is the next phase of my process. This is when I introduce, I guess, what you call the middle values, middle to middle dark values, and this is where you show shadows and you create volume and form, different shapes. You do some negative painting, as I'm doing here. I'm painting around the awnings to try to get those to pop in the final painting. Very conscious of the opacity level at this point. I don't want to be opaque in any way, so really this is this entire Next layer will be thought of as a wash, as a continuous connective wash between shapes. So that's what you'll see me doing now. Anytime you do one of these big urban scenes, the buildings in the background they really join to become one big interesting shape. So they're kind of like a curtain in a Broadway play, like a facade. So that's a good way to think about them. You don't want to give them too much attention because then that's all your viewer will look at. So I really treat the buildings in these urban scenes again as one big shape. Okay, for this next sequence, I've opted to speed the recording up here by twice normal speed. So I hope you don't mind that, but I couldn't see dragging this out too long. So like I say, this is double normal speed, and what I'm doing is I'm continuing to add in these middle values. Doing some negative painting here to reveal some of the doorways into the theater. But again, very much still painting as a wash, as a connected wash. So you'll see me add some of the glow from the neon lights here and let that interact with the other wet pigment around it. But it's very much a wash still at this point. So you want to think about it in that respect. Okay, continuing on here, adding more glow to the signage. There's actually a tall, slender, illuminated, I guess, Christmas tree at the top of the marquee here. So I'm adding some of the glow from the lights on there. I'm also going to strengthen some of the values to make the vertical signage pop. So by painting a little darker around them, it will help to make those big, interesting vertical shapes pop more in the final painting. So continuing on here, I will start to introduce, after I remove some of the pigment off the front corner of that signage to brighten it up a little bit, I'm going to go ahead and add some more shadows to the left side of the painting. Maybe start indicating some of the figures a little bit at this point. Just kind of strengthening this level of value in the painting. You'll see some shadow lines and strengthening the foreground a little bit here. When you want to see light in a watercolor painting, you've got to paint dark. So in order for this final scene to look very illuminated, I can't be afraid to create great disparity with darker values in the scene. So I had mentioned previously that I was kind of working on the middle dark layer, and I feel like I didn't suggest enough of these middle values. So I'm going to go back and re-strengthen some of these mid values. I'm in no way thinking that I'm in a darks layer yet. So this is still a middle value aspect of the painting. I'm adding some of the kind of the window lines and perspective of the buildings on the left-hand side, and just generally going through this entire step. Again, re-strengthening some of these middle dark values. Okay, cruising along here with my medium-size squirrel mop brush here. I'm continuing to add some of the darker middle values, suggest shadows emanating from the pedestrians, some of the street asphalt markings. Working my way across, starting to maybe suggest some of the figures. Again, more shadows emanating from the theater, and just gradually strengthening the piece even farther. I will shortly begin introducing the very darkest darks in the scene, and that will come in a few minutes here. But you can see here that I'm just looking for shadows, and now what I'm doing in the background here, I'm using a little bit of Chinese white to soften the background to help make it recede and look kind of soft and blurry. So interesting effect. I like how the Chinese white helps to diffuse things. So a good use for Chinese white. So now it's time to look for the darkest darks in the scene. this is kind of what I call a dry brush. We're pretty much working on dry paper at this point, and you'll see me reaching for pigment, very kind of thick and gooey, very opaque pigment, and you'll see some of the dry brush effects you can achieve on rough paper. And sometimes a painting that doesn't use dry brush can look overall have too soft of an appearance. So by introducing some dry brush, you can really kind of break up the monotony of a painting that looks too soft. So that's what I'm doing here. I'm looking for darkest darks, and with a dry brush technique, being very suggestive. And the other thing I'm doing with these darks is I'm creating an area of high contrast. So as your eye falls and you get very dark in this lower third region of the painting, it's going to set up an area of high contrast. So that when I put highlights on the figures, they're really going to stand out. So again, as your eye falls, you get darker behind the figures, and this will help create an area of high contrast. So part of the strategy, and what I'm doing now is I'm looking for some of the dark details, some of the street lights, any small detail has kind of a dark value. I'm going to go ahead and spot those in as well. Some of the shadows under the cars. Just looking for places here and there where I can introduce some dark dry brush. The other thing that this dark pigment will do is it will help come forward in a painting. So you'll see that as we put the figures in, how they will come forward using a dry brush technique. Okay, now it's time to start approaching our focal area of the painting. We spent a lot of time, probably too much time, on the background of the painting. Now it's time to get into all the figures, and you'll see I'm using again very thick paint, very opaque paint. Again, this will help make the figures come forward in the scene. And I'm just very quickly adding in just blobs of paint to suggest people in jackets and whatnot on the city streets. This has to be done in a very kind of high energy manner. You don't want to spend too long on each one of these figures because working quickly will help to infer energy. So you work very quickly, blobbing in jackets and coats and whatnot, and we'll come back with some highlights to help define these figures. But first thing I do is I just put in the blobs for figures. I'll come back and add legs with some very wispy dry brush technique to help make their legs help make them look like they're in motion. So the worst thing you can do is paint solid legs. You want a very kind of wispy dry brush effect for the legs. Okay, getting into, I guess, what I would term as the jewelry layer. This is where I start putting in opaque details. You can see some of the American flags I've spotted in. I'm going to actually go ahead and start painting in some of the lettering for the Radio City Music Hall neon lettering. Now, in the final large painting that I'll do, I will not paint in these letters because they are illuminated, and by putting the opaque pigment, they're going to look dull. They're not going to look illuminated at all. But for this study, I'm going to go ahead and use opaque pigment to suggest the lettering on the marquee here. And again, you cannot create light in a watercolor painting by painting it in. It has to be revealed. So in a future video, hopefully I'll show you the larger version of this painting, and you'll see how we really make that neon lettering look illuminated by basically painting around it and leaving white of the paper for the actual lettering. Okay, I'm going to start addressing my main characters in this story, and this is my patron and her niece looking up at the marquee, and I'll use fairly opaque pigment on this figure so that they will really come forward in the scene. And again, just very suggestive, the figures. I'll actually try to join the two figures as a kind of a technique to help them look, so they don't look like they're cut out. So I will kind of join these two figures somewhat. Now, the young lady on the right had a black jacket. I felt like it was too I was getting too much black, too much New York black jackets in the scene. So I'm going to leave her jacket as one of those white, kind of white puffy jackets. I needed some stark white in this painting, so a good opportunity for that to just leave her jacket white. Okay, now we're heading into the final aspects of the painting, and that is adding some strategic highlights. I use a paint called Wand Brilliant. It's a combination of Chinese white and yellow ochre, and I literally will take it straight from the tube with a small pointy detail brush, and I'll go in and add highlights to the tops of the figures' heads, to the tops of their shoulders. Um, you can see how all of a sudden they kind of come to life. It's a pretty amazing effect by adding a few highlights in the scene. Nothing wrong with using some semi-opaque white for some highlights here. I know some watercolor circles frown on that, but I think it's a perfectly valid thing to do. So you'll see the figures coming to life here with the highlights. Um, they're kind of catching the light from the marquee on their heads and their shoulders, and we are almost at the end of this study here. Okay, now I'm going to add some slightly stronger highlights to my main characters here. And so this young lady had blonde hair, and she's catching the light from the marquee, and really making her stand out, along with her aunt. And again, stronger highlights on her shoulders and head, and it really makes them stand out. So just a lovely effect, and I'm always glad to reach this point because it means I'm at the end of the painting process. So I almost forgot the tall, slender Christmas tree at the top of the marquee is covered with gold and red, I guess what you call twinkle lights. So I'm going to take some of this Wand Brilliant opaque Chinese white and yellow ochre paint. I'm going to go ahead and dab in some lights. And trick here is to kind of make it look random. Again, this is a study, so I'm not going to get too carried away with this effect. But you can see how it will actually look like a illuminated Christmas tree. Okay, so we've reached the end of this painting study, this preliminary study, and this is my favorite part when I peel the tape off, um, which is very helpful. It helps you to visualize your painting as a kind of a small mat board around it. It helps to isolate the painting. So I always encourage my students to use masking tape to frame out their painting before they start, because you get this very nice effect at the end, very satisfying effect by pulling the tape off. If you've enjoyed this tutorial, I'd really appreciate it if you'd hit the like button, and if you'd like to see future video tutorials, please hit the subscribe button, and don't forget to hit the alarm button to make sure that you don't miss any of my new posts. Okay, so this is my Apple iPad and my Apple Pencil. I'm using a digital paint program called Procreate, a very popular digital painting program. There are many similar paint programs. You don't have to use Procreate, but it's what I learned on, so it's what I'm going to use. So I'm looking at this finished painting, and the left side feels kind of dull to me. So I think I'm going to try to maybe reveal some light coming from underneath these awnings there. So I think a little light over here would help matters. Um, let's see, what's the next thing I'm going to do? I want to have more of a glow coming off these Radio City Music Hall neon lights. So I'll do that next. Okay, let's put some glow around the signage here. So I got my tool here. Let's see what happens here. Got a nice glow coming off the signage here. Kind of a nice effect. And also off the tree, right? And now we got this kind of light permeating everywhere. And also we would get some light around the sign here. So let's put in some light here, and then also over here there'd be a nice red glow. We got a lot of glow going on now, but that still doesn't look right. The neon lettering should be lit up, and we're gonna fix that next. So bear with me here. Okay, we're gonna see if we can't make these neon lights look like they're really illuminated. So I'm gonna go in, enlarge this a little bit here, and see if we can't make these look like neon lights here. And the line work could be a little thick. That's okay. Hopefully we'll get the effect of illuminated neon lights. We'll see here. You might already be thinking how we're going to achieve this in the watercolor painting, and I'll address that next. But already you can kind of tell that the neon lights look like they're actually lit. So let's keep going here on this side, and let's see, radio. And I'm not going to be too careful here. And actually, it says music hall here, so let's write that in. Music hall. Wow, look at that! Instant neon lights. And then down here, I believe we have neon lights. So let's see what we can do here. These are kind of far away, so but we can actually read the word music hall. So let's put that in. How cool is this, right? Okay, and then we got some more here. And then I believe there's some, it actually says Rockettes here, but we'll fake that in for now. Okay, so I think you can see, I think you can see how we might be able to get the effect of neon lights in our next big painting. So let's see what else we can do here. So one problem we have is I feel like this side of the painting is not very well connected to this side of the painting. So I think what it needs is another pedestrian crosswalk here. So let's see what would happen if we put another crosswalk here, and we can actually suggest or make up or whatever another crosswalk here. It's probably not exact, but that's okay. It gives us the idea. So let's see. Let's back out here and see how that looks. So I think that would help. That would help. We can get rid of lines in front of this guy. But I think that would help take our eye across the street. So I rather quite like that. I think that this figure in the foreground needs to have a little bit more warmth. So I'm going to put her in a brown coat. Maybe it's a mink. I don't know. And let's pick a darker color here for her pants. And we'll do some darker color for the pants. And fade that in a little bit. And maybe she has a handbag. Maybe she has a bright red handbag. What do you guys think? Bright red handbag. We'll give her a handbag here. Oh, that's a little too bright, I think. But we can cool it down. We can cool it down a little bit. So there's our handbag. And the last thing I want to do is strengthen some of these highlights here. So let's pick a warm highlight color. I think that'll work. We'll get our brush size here. You guys are getting a crash course on Procreate. Let's see what would happen if we give her a few more highlights. She's going to come forward. Same with our figures over here. Strengthen their highlights. Now, there's one other thing I need to do. I need to give this young lady a blue jacket. I'm going to create another layer here, and I'm going to tell this layer to multiply. So anybody here is familiar with Photoshop, they'll understand what this means. And let's see what happens if we give her a blue jacket here. There we go. Now she's got a blue denim jacket. Okay, I think I like the improvements very much. The crosswalk, the lights under the canopies here, the much more illuminated signage with the neon signage. I think that the Christmas tree actually could use some bright lights. Let's see what we can do there. Let's see what we can do there. Let's put some brighter lights on the tree here. Uh-oh. Something's not right. Oh, I know why. Okay, let's see if we can get some stronger twinkle lights here. Let's see, that should be a lot whiter. Now we're getting some brighter lights on the tree here. But the reason these aren't showing up is because they are under this. So let's fade this out a little bit here. These are some of the cool things you can do. See that glow going back a little bit? And the other thing we can do is we can erase some of that glow. We can erase a little of this glow to make the lights brighter. You see how that works? Okay, I think that's good enough. And when I do the large watercolor painting, I'm going to take great advantage of what I've discovered here and see if we can't get a better piece. All right, that's it, guys. Doing this preliminary study, along with the digital iPad enhancements, will allow me to more confidently paint the final large watercolor commission with a clear plan of action. The hallmark of a quality watercolor painting is confidence. Bold, confident execution of watercolor will greatly set your work apart. I hope you enjoyed this video tutorial. If you'd like to learn more about my work and my in-person workshop classes, please visit my website at www.leokillwatercolors.com. I really look forward to providing you with lots of watercolor insights in future videos. Until then, have lots of fun with this amazing medium of watercolor.